Early, you just started.
Yep, it's going now.
Going back up in the house.
Just clicked on enough
It
things.
just clicked on it. Just clicked on it.
Close your eyes and click.
Hello.
So which camera did we use?
So we're using the owl. Right, hold on, let me just kind of get this all cleaned up so that we can get started.
That's merciful, man. I understand.
It was good for him, but it was hard on us.
Always.
So hard.
Okay. I think that's what I'm gonna do. All right, we're gonna start. If people maybe give people a second to figure it out. Hopefully it's working. You can start now.
Well, we just got
Hey,
the,
we
we just
just
got the
got it to
Facebook piece
work,
started,
yeah.
so. You're perfect timing, perfect timing. And if you need to get any snacks, there's cookies, and even though I usually don't authorize it, there are healthy fruit out there too. So are we ready to roll?
Yeah, we are ready to roll.
Well, so good evening, everyone. Welcome at last. We're on Longwood Standard Time, 15 minutes late, so it's about par for the course. My name is Brent Roberts. I think I've met all of you before. I'm the Dean of the Library here at Greenwood at Longwood University. And I'm very excited to be offering this Preserving the Past program with, I shouldn't say with, I'm really just here to introduce my colleagues, Jamie Crow and Benedict Shotland, who are our archivists. And most of you know them through being at these programs before and coming to the Historical Society. And we're very proud here of the work that they do in preserving records, not only of the Historical Society, but of the Mote Museum, and capturing the great story of this wonderful university, Longwood University. In case you wonder which great university I was talking about, I'm talking about Longwood. I do want to give a special shout out. I hope I'm looking at the camera right, but a shout out to everybody who's watching out on Facebook. Welcome. It took us a few minutes to get Facebook started and launched. That's why we're running a little bit late. So with that, my friends, I will remind you that we've got cookies and we have healthy fruit out there for you and 100% natural lemonade, as well as water for your consumption and enjoyment. And if you have any questions, be sure to direct them to Benedict and Jamie. They have all the answers. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Take it away, Benedict.
All the answers. Dang.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. We're going to start this off basically by telling you what we're trying to get across tonight, and that's in terms of preservation. There is a difference between preservation and conservation. Preservation is a preventative measure to keep damage, decay, anything from happening to your photographs, your family records, anything that you want to keep for future generations. The difference is conservation is a remedial measure that takes place after some damage has happened. We're not going to get into that tonight because that is quite a bit more complicated. But tonight we will be talking about how you can take steps now to prevent anything from happening. I'm going to start us off with photographs. Photographs are my favorite things in the archives. Keeping them for future generations is something that I enjoy doing and hope that we can pass that on tonight. So first of all, in terms of handling any of your photographic materials, you want to make sure you wear gloves. There are two different types of gloves that we use when working with photographs in the archives. The first is a lightweight cotton glove, but lately we've been using a nitrile. Either one works fine, but the main thing you're doing is keeping any oils or dirt or any foreign matter that's on your hand from transferring to the photographs. But even while wearing gloves, you want to make sure that you're also holding the photograph by the edges. You don't want to ever touch the actual face, the actual photograph, because anything you do by touching it can cause damage. Organization is a big thing. Not only do you want to preserve things, you want to have them organized in such a way so future generations can look at them and find them and know who it is they're looking at and what the events were. So if you happen to have that knowledge firsthand, make sure that that isn't lost to the future. The first thing you want to do, though, is record that somehow, whether that's on a separate spreadsheet or if you want to write in pencil very lightly on the back of the photograph. You do not want to use, though, any sort of ink or pen on your photograph. I like to organize things by event because they're easy to find. So if you know, this series of photos was taken at an anniversary party or a family reunion, and you happen to know the date as well, that's all great information. And lastly, share these things with people that that you love. Share them with your family. Make sure that others in your family know what it is that you're preserving and passing on to them. Storage. A cool, dry place. That's the one major thing I want you to take away from this. Do not store photographs or any type of family records that you want to preserve in attics or basements. Store them somewhere away from the sunlight and in an acid-free, archival safe box or folder or some type of container. No wooden boxes, no shoe boxes. The cardboard and shoe boxes is very acidic and can damage your photographs quite easily. And of course, no plastic boxes or bags. There are, before Jamie moves on to paper, I didn't mean to click that. There are several products which we'll talk about a little later and show you where to find them that you can purchase to store your photographs. We like to use archival safe polyethylene sleeves. Gives you polypropylene. Thank you.
Yeah.
It gives you a nice safe way to keep your photographs. We keep them in these archival safe binders, but then also you can see the front and the back of the photograph quite easily without having to touch them at all. All right. With that,
She jumped right in there to say polypropylene instead of polyethylene.
ethylene.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the big difference between polypropylene and
Ethyl, oil.
Oil, yeah.
I've seen currency collections destroyed. Put up
I'm sure.
in a closet shelf and pulled out like 10 years later, it's all soaked into the paper.
Yeah, over time, plastic turns back into oil if it's made that way. So polypropylene and polyester are the two types that are generally safe to use long term. They don't degrade the same way that polyethylene does.
There's a reason I did not pass chemistry in high school.
So
All
can
right.
I ask a question before you go on?
Yeah.
So Benedict mentioned sharing your photos with people. I imagine we'll get into this when we start talking about scanning and things, but what, I know you can upload photos to things like Family Search, Ancestry, and things like that. How else do you recommend sharing photos since the files can be so large?
I mean, if you can share photos in person, that's of course the easiest way.
Well, that's so 19th century.
If you can store them somehow on the cloud or some way that you can share a link rather than sending a file, That certainly makes it easier. And I mean, it's a lot simpler than trying to send people via email large photographic files.
Yeah, and you do want to be careful with, it's always great to scan photos because then you have a digital copy that you can share with other people. But technology changes quickly. So it's something you want to be aware of, that if you scanned a photo, that it's in a format that can be passed on, or that is pretty common, and that, there's some proprietary softwares out there that you want to avoid, because somebody might not have the program to open that image. So you want to kind of be at least a little bit aware of that. It's really technical and complicated.
And we'll talk about that towards
We
the end
can-
when we do the scanning, different types of file types and
Yeah.
How to save things so that the files don't degrade over time too much.
Any more questions?
So I'm gonna just quickly talk about paper. As you can imagine, it's pretty similar to photographs, but just slightly different because paper is a little more durable than photographs are. So handling a photo or a piece of paper, you don't necessarily need to wear gloves. Paper is durable. Yes, your hands have oils, but sometimes, flipping through a book wearing those white cotton gloves, you'll do more damage to the pages than you would if you just had clean, dry hands. So if you have something that's really important to you, you should probably wash your hands before you handle it, but you don't necessarily need to wear gloves. Also, you want to have a clean, dry workspace. As an archivist, I love flat spaces. So I like to have as much room as I possibly can to spread things out and look at them and go through them and organize them. And then obviously, this one seems obvious, don't eat or drink or smoke when you're handling your materials because you could spill something. I have lots of letters that have coffee stains on them and things like that. So you want to try to avoid doing any more damage to them than they might already have. And then organizing is a little different. You probably want to organize by the type of material or what you're using it for. So like if you have correspondence, probably chronological makes the most sense, and or alphabetical. So whatever really works for you is probably the best way to organize it, but make sure to label things. And you want to label folders and boxes so that people can make sense of that later on. So you don't necessarily need to be overcomplicated, but make sure that someone else will be able to understand that label that you've given it. And then create inventories. So if you've made a box, so like just like this box right here, and you have all these little folders in it, once you're done, in a spreadsheet or in a Word document, you can actually write down all the folder names and say that they're in this box. And then that way, it's an easy way for you next time you want to look at something or find something that you can look at that inventory and go, oh, it's in that box. And I know where it is. So there's a couple of things you can do. And then to store paper materials, you want to remove metal fasteners. So staples and paper clips, you want to remove things like that because they rust over time and they will cause damage. So you want to use something we call a plastic clip or some kind of plastic paper clip, something like that is the best option, or just leave things loose. A lot of times we just take the staple out and never replace it with anything because those things aren't really going to move around too much. There's no reason to keep them stapled together. Also, the other really bad thing are rubber bands. People like to wrap things in rubber bands. Just like the polyethylene and the plastics, the rubber band starts to turn back into oil and glue essentially, and it will leave terrible yellow streaks through your documents or tear holes in them or it sticks to everything and it's awful. And then same thing with storing it in attics and basements, don't do it. You want to avoid places that have high humidity or that have humidity and temperature that change drastically. Because every time the air around the document or the photograph changes, the photograph or document contracts and uncontracts, and that does damage to it. That's also like if you've ever seen have something with high humidity, you'll start to see the pages start to curl up at the ends. That's because the paper is soaking up all that moisture, and that does damage to those papers long term. So you want to try to avoid that if you can. Find an interior room. You also want to avoid lights. This is my first example I can show you. So you want to try to avoid direct sunlight or regular household light bulbs, because over time, sunlight does irreparable damage. You can never restore this back to its original, what it looked like originally. So this is an example we have of this little card that has been in a nice little box for a long time. And this one was out in a display case in the sun for a very long time. And you can tell that the color is very faded, and green is now blue and red is kind of pinky. So sunlight is not your friend, or not documents friend at least. So I like this one too. I will pass it around actually. Kind of get a closer look at those. And then you want to try, if you can, this is easier said than done. If you have things that are oversized, if you have things that are large, you want to try and lay them flat, because you don't want to fold them, because those folds can cause tears or rips over time. And if you can roll them, so this is a photograph we have that's rolled. So you can roll them, but it's very hard to unroll them. As you can see by this one, it does not want to unroll, and I think Benedict's going to talk about this one more. But you want to be careful of doing it this way. Okay, hold ends. But you can see how this one, if I let go, it would just snap back. And this one's in pretty good shape, but if you had a photograph that was damaged, you could lose part of this image, or you could be losing part of the sheet of paper because it would crack and crumble as we tried to unroll it. So a conservator, as we kind of talked about the difference, does have methods to unroll something like that, but it's much more complicated. So if you can lay them flat, I recommend laying them flat over choosing to roll them, and definitely don't fold them. I would rather you roll them than fold them. And then lastly, my biggest piece of advice is don't laminate anything ever. So again, we're going to go back to our plastics. So first of all, you can't undo lamination. You can't take it apart. Once you've done it, it's permanent. So you've trapped that document inside this plastic sleeve with all of the acid and grossness that's already in the paper, and you've wrapped it in plastic that's going to degrade over time. So it's very bad for the document. It will cause damage over time. So this is like a double whammy, because they not only laminated these newspapers, but they stapled them together. So you don't want to do this. This is newspaper, so luckily we have lots of copies of newspaper, and we don't need to worry about it being laminated. But if it's one of a kind, or it's really special to you, just don't laminate it. So
How can you say that? Because librarians and teachers would laminate literally anything that they could possibly get their
well,
hands.
you certainly can laminate stuff if it's just, you need to put a sign on the door. Go ahead and laminate it. If you are making a play, a game for your children, laminate it. But if you have a letter signed by a president that's to your great grandfather and it's precious to you, don't laminate it. So you can laminate things if they're just things you're going to throw away or discard. But if it's precious to you, if it's important, don't laminate it. Just don't do it. So, you have a question, Ethan? Yes.
And she asked if you could show the hold up photograph a little.
Oh, okay. We can do that, Betty. I was gonna say, the camera is kind of at an angle. So you can see Betty. See, look, I'm gonna talk directly to you, Betty. That it's kind of curved.
Can she see it?
Oh, no, I guess you can't. It's split into two. So you can see And it's rolled pretty tightly. For the roll post. Yeah. All right.
Betty, I'll show you tomorrow.
And then the last thing I'm going to talk about real quickly, I am by no means an expert, and a lot of this I've learned kind of on the fly. So if you have a textile that you have that you're concerned about, I suggest you reach out to a conservator, a professional, and I can point you in the right direction. But I'm going to give you some tips on how to kind of care for textiles. I know I have a very precious baby blanket at home that I need to do this to myself. So textiles you want to handle gently and infrequently. If you don't need to touch it or handle it, don't. You want to same rules, store in a cool, dry place, no attics, no basements, that sort of thing. And the difference though, is that you don't, just like with paper, like I said, don't fold things. You really want to try to avoid folding. So if you have something like a quilt or a blanket, you want to try to avoid folding it because those creases again over time will cause damage. So what you want to do is try to roll it, or you can use kind of this technique right here in this photo where you take a piece of unbuffered tissue paper. Do not use your Christmas wrapping tissue paper or colored tissue paper of any kind. You want to get,
What does unbuffered mean?
so unbuffered means that it does not have any alkaline chemicals in it. So you'll see in an archival store that they have buffered and they have things that are buffered and things that are unbuffered. So you use buffered when working with paper and you use unbuffered when working with basically anything else. And it basically has a chemical that neutralizes or helps neutralize acid in paper. And that chemical could, in theory, do damage or cause fading or coloration issues in anything that isn't paper. So you want to avoid that. So that's very important. Yes, ma'am.
I have a crocheted blanket,
Mhm.
if you will, afghan that my great grandmother, and it's starting to degrade.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything would like wrapping it.
Yeah, so I think if you rolled it, that would probably be a good start. And if you've got a acid-free box for it, something, yeah, something with unbuffered, yeah, to put it in that box, that would help it last longer. But it also might be something you could talk to a conservator about. So a conservator would probably actually look at the individual threads and see if there's a way to strengthen or repair any threads that are actually broken. So this is a little different than that because I can't tell you how to do that. But they can kind of give you advice on how to strengthen or repair if there is kind of damage already. But kind of this technique where you take this tissue paper and you kind of roll it into like a nice little ball. If you put this in the folds of whatever textile you have, it kind of keeps the creases from being severe. So we pulled out this nightgown. You might want to show the camera too. But you can see if Benedict turns it sideways, you can see that we had to fold it to fit it in the box, but we use the tissue paper to kind of keep those folds from being severe so that over time they don't do damage.
So it's not really wrapped in
No.
the tissue paper, it's just, the tissue paper just kind of wedged into the.
Yeah, and we do have tissue paper kind of lining the box too, just as
On the
an
bottom end.
added precaution. But yeah, this one's in very good shape, so it's easy to handle. But we do have other things that we just choose not to handle as much because they're more fragile.
So is that a historic nightgown from Longwood's long lustrous history?
Yes.
or-
It was found in
Yeah.
Longwood House prior to renovation, and they think it dates to late 19th century.
I think. Oh, okay. I'm going to talk real quick. So we talked about the unbuffered versus buffered, and Benedict mentioned our acid-free archival folders and sleeves, and the polypropylene sleeves for photos, and then all these things that we have kind of up here. not a sponsor, but I highly recommend Gaylord Archival if you have not heard of it. They are a company that sells archival quality materials. And they've added this wonderful kind of element to their website that's this personal preservation and family, which is the second link I've linked to here. And that's all kind of kits and sets designed for the family historian. So they have things for photographs, they have things for quilts, they have things for, I think they have a kit for jackets or military dress or jackets. So they kind of have pre-made these little sets or kits that you can get to preserve a specific type of thing. So it makes it easy, so you don't have to understand quite all the jargon and all the science behind it all. They just give you what you need. The next one is B&H Photo. They have a lot of wonderful things that you can get to preserve photographs. So the sleeves that Benedict showed you, that sort of thing. And they're designed for photographers. The site is geared towards photographers, but they have some great things that you can use to preserve photographs there as well. And then the other site is University Products, which has a lot of the same things that Gaylord does. So it's just another option. Gaylord can be a little expensive. That's kind of their downfall. So University Products is usually a little cheaper. So I'll leave that up for a second. Because I know it's a lot of links. But
And if we go to these websites, if you mention your name.
yeah, I get a 5%. No, not a sponsor. Not a sponsor. I've just always Gaylord's the one I learned about when I was a student here, and I'm attached for some reason. But they do have the wonderful kits now that they've added because they know people are trying to preserve these things at home and trying to make sure they last for generations. And so they're trying to make it a little easier for people, which I really like.
I just bought an archival box under Jamie's close supervision for my personal journal. The journal that I had when I was in the 5th grade was this 5-subject spiral bound diary that I kept. All my deepest secrets, confessions were in there. But, 40 years later, I guess I should say almost 50 years later now, it's starting to fall apart. The pages are all falling out of the binding and everything. So Jamie directed me to get a acid-free archival box, and it's fit right in there, and it's perfect, holds it all together. It'll last forever, forever. What I was watching on TV, what I was eating for lunch.
And Benedict and I are going to show you how to actually scan things. But for the benefit of those watching via Facebook, we wanted to show you what scanners we have here in the library. So we have two kinds really. This Epson B850, which is right over here next to the computer. And it's a small scanner that can scan documents, photographs, slides, and negatives. So if you've got those pesky little slides at home or some negatives that you don't know what's on them, we have a scanner that you can actually turn them back into photographs and see them once again. And they're here for anybody to use. And then we also have new, as of last summer, even though no one could really be here, we have a VersaScan 3650 that is a large format flatbed scanner that actually scans items up to 36 by 50 inches. So if you have an oversized piece of artwork, you have a poster, you have a panoramic at home, something that won't fit on that small flatbed scanner, we have the big flatbed scanner to make it so that you can scan those and be able to share those and send them to people. So
We have the technology.
we have the
Right.
technology. I like it. Yeah. So
That's a great tool, I mean, especially because the only other options for something that large is usually a feed scanner, which can easily damage things that you want to avoid damaging. But this is a safe way to scan anything large.
Can I ask how much something like that costs?
You can ask.
I was gonna say, I don't know if we should tell.
I can't even remember.
I don't-
Versus scan was huge.
Yeah, it was a lot.
30 grand or something?
Upwards, I think. Upwards of that.
It was,
Upwards.
yeah, and they had to bring it in in multiple pieces. I mean, you could lay down on that, and you'll see how massive. You can see it from space.
All right. You wanna take it away?
Yeah, are we getting into the Facebook?
Oh, yeah. All right, we're gonna go ahead and end our Facebook live. So thank you for joining us, at least Betty. I know Betty was here, so thanks, Betty.
Bye-bye.
All right. I have to find where the,
And while we're transitioning.
Oh, I guess I
I'm gonna
just
hand
end the
out,
Zoom.
You know, we actually
Just
have a
end
whole
the Zoom.
program